Hi, everyone. I'm Samson Seeroth, Managing Artistic Director of Theater Diaspora, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Family Ties That Bind fundraising event. Hello to our audience here at Curious Comedy Theater, and to all of us joining on YouTube for the live stream. It is November 6th, and November is now officially recognized as Native American Heritage Month. We come to you from Portland, Oregon, which has the 9th largest urban Native American and Indigenous population in the country, with over 380,000 nations represented in Oregon. The Chinook lived on the ancestral lands, now in the Portland region, all the way to Oregon City on the east side of the Willamette River. The west side of Portland through to Sauvie's Island were the lands of the Multnomah people. On the West Hills were the lands of the Tualatin and Kalapuya peoples. We recognize them and their connections to the land where they lived, traded, and gathered native foods such as the Wapato potato. These foods sustained them and were traded as well as fish from the Columbia River. These are the ancestral lands that were taken from them that we now call the Portland metro area. We recognize the policies of genocide, environmental racism, and relocation that was part of the history of Portland. We recognize and respect our ancestors and those that come before us. So today we present Family Ties That Bind with readings from various local Asian American Pacific Islander artists that you may or may not know. We'll be exploring family and all the ways that can be interpreted, whether it's biological or found family. Our relationships to each other greatly impact our lives and our perspectives. This is also a fundraising event to help raise funds for our stage reading series, which we had to put on hold in 2020 because of COVID. But I'd like to announce some of the things we're planning for next year. We are partnering with Oregon Children's Theater to produce a stage reading of Inside Out and Back Again by Min Kong about a Vietnamese girl named Ha who flees with her family to Alabama after the fall of Saigon. And Oregon Children's Theater is actually producing Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by the same playwright, featuring an all-Asian cast, and it's a musical, so definitely check that out. I'd also like to announce that we are working to produce a comedy entitled Hot Asian Doctor Husband. Yeah, by Leah Nanako Winkler, about a biracial woman questioning her legacy and whether or not she is whitewashing her culture. She dumps her white boyfriend in search of a hot Asian doctor husband. And we're also in discussion with other organizations in town to help produce new workshop pieces by local AAPI artists. So if you'd like to learn more, go to our website, sign up to our newsletter. And speaking of local AAPI artists, it is my pleasure to introduce our first performer. He recently put together the first ever Tiger Festival earlier this year. So please help me welcome musician and writer to the stage, Joe Kai.
But I was packing for this event yesterday, packing up this violin, the pedals, stuffing them in. And as I was doing that, I realized I had another story that was a little confusing. And so I thought, okay, it's a Theater Diaspora event, and Theater Diaspora it's an organization that I think of as home. So I'm gonna give this a shot. We'll see what happens today. This is the story of the day I bought my first violin. My family bought my first violin. I was in 6th grade, so you can sort of imagine little 6th grade Joe, cheeks galore, wire oval glasses, check, puka shell necklace, check, and then of course some the wave in front. Something's never changed. I was a good student. It was really important to get good grades. I was also really into Britney Spears at the time. Weren't we all? And contrary to what I just said, I loved music. I really did. So he imagined little Joe, little 6th grade Joe, at Bischoff Berger Violin Shop in Seattle, Washington. You step in, it's a converted Victorian house, one of the oldest and biggest violin shops in Seattle. And you enter, and there are creaky floorboards, the smell of sawdust and varnish. You can hear the little tap, tap, tap of tiny little hammers for the violin, the scraping sounds of the workers creating violins. And dusty. Speaking of the workers, the dusty aprons, the gray hair, the glasses perched, at the end of their nose, looking down at these priceless, beautiful instruments. So this could easily become an Ollivander story, but it was not. There is a feeling of unease that permeates this shop for little Joe. The violins are neatly stacked in rows and on shelves that seem just a little out of reach. And I remember just the feeling of tension. Tension that I think can be best encapsulated in my dad's eyebrows. My eyebrows. So meet my dad, he of eyebrows. He moved to the United States chasing a dream. He had been a history teacher at a private high school in Seoul, South Korea. Moved to the United States to pursue a graduate degree in history. Brought his family of 4, a 6-year-old Joe and 3-year-old Lydia, young and lean. The dream quickly became a reality. I mean, the money that he had saved was burned up in 2 years as he studied for his English language exam. After we had burned through the said savings, we found ourselves in Seattle, finally at the University of Washington, as he started his PhD program in history. And things were tough. If you're a TA and you have a family of 4, to support them it's no easy task. So I remember many times we wouldn't be able to pay rent, and the family translator, old Joe, would have to navigate these conversations. And when I'm feeling generous, I feel for my dad. And how difficult that must have been. And so here is this man, my dad, pissed, utterly pissed in Bischofberger violin that he had to haggle in a language that was not his own, that he had to haggle at all. And there's little Joe over by the violins, trying to put on the performance of his little life. So for the audience, that is my dad. How can I show him? How do I stand in a way that can prove to him that I deserve a violin, that I was a good boy, and that I'm serious about this, Dad. I'm serious. And for the store clerk with the glasses, how do I tug at this white man's heart? How can I comport myself and show like how promising as a violinist, and that I'm deserving of his generosity, so that maybe he would shave a couple $100 off the price of this instrument. So I'm walking down the aisles of violins, and I would look at the prices and think, okay, this is 1 month's rent, this is 2 months' rent, like this is 1.5 months' rent. Like maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe that's what I can ask for. And while I'm in that zone, my dad calls out to me, "Hyuna, 이리 와." So I go over to the counter, and I begin to translate a haggling session. And frankly, I don't remember the words very much. I remember the glass counter with, rosin and other beautiful things inside. The clerk on this side, my father here, and just this weird game of tennis, Korean, like English, Korean, but also like It's a blur. It's a real blur. But in the end, we walked out with a cheap violin. And on the drive home, I just remember such mixed emotions. A moment in time when I would love for little Joe to sit there in the chair in the back seat and be like ecstatic, like I have this instrument. Like yes. But instead, I felt that tension even in that moment. The feeling that I had taken something away from my family, that I'm hurting my family somehow by wanting to do what I loved. So it's great to have these stories because I have a lot of things to talk about in therapy. And what I'm working on right now is realizing the self-censorship that I do, learning how to even recognize that I want something when all my life I censored myself and told myself either that you don't really want that, or oh, you're better than that, or you would want to go to hell. Christian family. When I censor myself now at this age, I also find myself resenting my loved ones. And so I'm trying to know myself on that path so that I can localize Thanks for letting me share that. Let's go into a song. This song is a recent song, and I think it captures some of those emotions.
아빠도 손바닥 내밀어 눈물을 흘리면 돼 마음은 얘기를 안 해도 돼 눈동자 한순간 감으면 돼 하지만 감정이 쌓이면 눈처럼 녹아서 사랑이 있는지 없는지 모르게 돼 I don't know where we go All I know is I don't want you I don't know where we go 자신도 겪어서 모르는지 사진은 남아서 태우는지 남한테 피해를 보아도 노력을 해봐도 이렇게 왜 곁에 내 곁에 남아진지 기도로 자신을 살려야 해 고물은 질질 나밀어내 하지만 감정이 쌓이면 눈처럼 녹아서 사랑이 있는지 없는지 모르게 돼 I don't know where we go All I know is I don't want you I don't know where we go Nobody dies of a broken heart Even the best of them fall apart Feeling it close as it comes and it goes is better than groping alone in the cold and the dark Better to leave it before it starts Hanging a wish on a falling star Feeling it rise when it calls you the second to all that she's known that she's held in the tears in her heart I don't know where we go All I know is I don't want you I don't know
Thank you, Joe. Our next guest is Francis Lupai Ippolito. Francis has appeared in Nailed Magazine, Buckman Journal's Issue 6, and some anthologies that have just come out. Her work is also featured in the Ooligan Press Writers of Color Showcase 2020 in Portland, and she will be reading her piece, A Neighbor's Gift. Please help me welcome Francis.
Hi, everyone. It's really bright up here, but I can see all your faces. And thank you for having me here, and thank you to Theater Diaspora for having this event. And for everyone online, welcome, and please help with this fundraiser. All right, so I'm going to read from my essay, A Neighbor's Gift. My neighbor gave me a gift today, my 65-year-old mother told me over the phone. It was late May 2021, and the weather where I was in Portland, Oregon, was hot but beautiful. With the phone pressed by my shoulder to my ear, I looked out my home office window to the front yard, where a mature oak tree stood tall with a canopy of starry-lobed leaves. Beside the great oak crouched the little fig, with the beginnings of fruit budding between its leaved gloves. Around them, the strawberry vines weaved a carpet of pink and white flowers that drew bumblebees to perch on pale yellow pistils to gather their nectar. I tried to imagine what my mother's garden was like in Los Angeles, where she lived in the vibrant Chinese-American community of San Gabriel Valley. I hadn't seen her garden on the backyard hill in nearly 2 years, because we hadn't seen each other in person, had a meal together, or hugged in the same amount of time. Even though she had just received her second vaccine dose, neither one of us wanted to chance anything. Back on the phone, I was curious about the gift. The neighbor with cancer, who never comes out of her house, did you wear a mask? I was concerned for both of them. By age, my mother was already in high-risk bracket. She had high blood pressure and diabetes. But even so, it seemed more dangerous for the immune-compromised woman next door, who was fighting cancer and mothering a toddler. Yes, she and I wore 2 masks and gloves. We stayed outside. Some of the tightness that I didn't know was wound up in my chest released. That's nice of her. Maybe I should get her something too and have it delivered to her door. No need. I gave her pomegranates from my garden. That's a good idea. My mother's juicy pomegranates were always the size of grapefruits. So what did she give you? Pepper spray. A lot of bottles, my mother answered. Pepper spray? What a strange thing to give. Well, she told me another Asian woman was attacked at the store, and she gave me the pepper spray. For when I take Bibi on walks, she wants me to be careful. Yeah, I guess so. My neighbor was right. There had been attacks. Beatings, thefts, and lots of the usual name-calling. And months earlier, 8 people were gunned down at a spa in Atlanta, Georgia. And 6 of them were Asian American women with faces like my mother's. She gave me too much. I'll send some to you. You have kids. You have to be careful. Don't go out. Your husband can go to the store. You should stay home. It's safer for him. You never listened to me. I bristled. The rebellious teenager aroused, ready to argue that I was plenty capable of taking care of myself. After all, I was in my 40s and a mother of 2 children myself. Didn't I need to teach my son and daughter that women shouldn't be scared to be women? But I bit my tongue. As much I hated to admit it, my mother knows the parts of me better than I do. And maybe it's because she recognizes those parts in herself. The truth was, after Atlanta, I was scared, afraid to go out alone to the playground with my mixed-race children if my white husband wasn't with us. Because if he was there, then by the sheer physical adjacency, we might be protected by the gloss of his whiteness. That by being near our children, they could wear his skin like a protective cloak to make themselves invisible if someone full of hate walked by. I was angry and ashamed at these secret thoughts and feelings I struggled with. Mad at having to be even more vigilant about how people saw and treated me and my children based on how they viewed our bodies. Ashamed to always feel this burdensome weakness. Yet, the fear of having my children attacked took all the space in my chest. Fear does that. It stuns you, pushes you down, and tries to smother the life out of you, pinning you to the pavement with the knee kneeling on your neck until you finally forget how to breathe. Naively, I assumed my mother would be immune from any real danger in the concentrated Asian American community of Southern California. The reality is it's not about real danger, though the danger is always real. It's about the fear that is always there, both collecting and collective. And on that phone call, my fear only expanded to blanket my mother's home, her garden of ripe oranges and sugar canes, in her neighborhood, her stores, and a very kind neighbor who gave her gifts. I thought all these things, but kept them to myself. I didn't want to upset her. She was very anxious after Atlanta. And this far away in Portland, I felt helpless, unable to physically be with her or to emotionally reassure her that the danger was minimal. So instead of saying what I felt, I told her, I can get pepper spray. Here, do you need more? Do you have enough? Make sure to bring extra if you go out. Do you see what I did? I lectured her rather than letting her lecture me and switch the roles as mothers and daughters do when they argue easily, but have a hard time saying, I love you. I have enough. I'm worried about you, she said. And there it was again, the flipping back of the roles. I stared out the window once more, trying to find peace and delight in the same garden view. But I'd lost the moment. The sweetness of birdsong was there, but muted by the growing thunder in my chest. Are you afraid? I asked. Flip. Of course not. If something happens, something happens. I'm not afraid. But your children are still young. You have to be careful. Another flip. Suddenly, I felt very tired, the kind of fatigue that warms into the bones. I'll be careful. I'll talk to you later. Be careful, too. I didn't wait for her to answer before I ended the call, and I set the phone back on the desk. Then I stood up, restless and unable to concentrate on the work I'd planned to finish. Instead, I pulled the blinds closed and shut out the garden, the hopping birds, dancing bees, pink flowers in the silent sentinel oak tree. Is this what it took to be safe? Another layer of hiding on top of hiding. An avalanche of bearing until no one sees you, but you're left without air. After the Atlanta shooting, friends called to check on how I was doing. Many apologized. They assumed that Asian Americans didn't count as a marginalized community because, perceived academic, financial, and professional success. Others were surprised they'd never heard about any incidents against Asian Americans. Though I appreciated the concern, love, and care that my friends sent my way, the experience was a revelation. Violence against Asians was not a surprise to me. I had my fair share. But this was different in the level of increased reporting and the acknowledgement that perhaps, maybe we had it bad too. Certainly reporting is up. According to a new study from the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at Cal State University of San Bernardino, in 2020, anti-Asian hate crimes increased by 146% across 26 of America's largest jurisdictions. It increased 223% in New York City. However, these are reported crimes. And from my own experiences, I know that most incidents aren't reported. Most of the time, there is this cultural tendency, at least in my family, to stoically bear suffering because the pain passed generation to generation from diasporic colonialism and displacement makes it tolerable. And at the root of it all, there is this self-flagellating belief that this is the price to pay for being American. But soaking in a well of fear is consuming, and I let myself indulge for a moment or two before the anger and, if I'm honest, the rage took over. Why did I have to hide? What was my role in all this flipping? Was it to become unreported and unseen? And so I picked up the pen, metaphorically because I mainly type, and I began to write during the pandemic. Not to become famous, wealthy, or sell 1 million copies, but I wouldn't say no if that happened. But only to be, to exist, to be visible, to throw one pebble-sized story at a time into the chasm of disparity. The pebbles I write are little gestures, like a neighbor's gift of pepper spray. But what they represent is much more. It's a flipping of roles. From being afraid, which I always am, to pushing back. Because if we throw enough pebbles, we can start mending and filling the holes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frances. Now I'd like to introduce some of our very own Theater Diaspora company members. Since Meteorite first conceived of Theater Diaspora in 2013, Larry Toda and Alex Haslett have been in the forefront. I'm so excited to introduce Larry Toda to share his piece about his mother. So please welcome to the stage, Larry Toda.
Thank you, Samson. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight for our fundraising event. My play is called Please Release Me. The psychic said, "Your mother is standing behind you, right behind your right shoulder." What the hell does she want, was my reaction. My mother died 8 years ago from cancer. She is worried about you. You have something blocking you, your home. You have a mirror in your entry. Yes, my grandmother's mirror, it faces the front door. Bad feng shui. The good energy in your house is reflecting off the mirror and escaping out of your front door. Move the mirror. You also need to move the crystals in your home. They're all in one place, correct? Yes, they're all in my bedroom. I have 5 crystals in the windowsill. Wow. I was surprised that the psychic picked up on the mirror and my crystals. Place the crystals around the home to release your creative blockage. Creative blockage? You are writing a story about your mother, aren't you? That is what she is telling me. I thought about writing a story about my mom many years ago, but I hadn't made the effort. We had a complicated relationship. I was the youngest of 3 children and the second son. She adored my older brother, putting him on a pedestal while I was her miserable failure. Your mother is saying, do not embarrass me. Embarrass her? It was always me who was embarrassed by her. My mind is just reeling. I always felt that I wasn't good enough for my mother. I was a chubby kid, and my mother took me to the doctor to lose weight. In the 4th grade, she forced me to run around the house before dinner each day. She sat on the front porch and counted me down. 1, 2, 3, 10 times around the house. Then I could eat dinner, but not what she had prepared for the rest of the family. I was drenched in sweat and out of breath as I entered the house, but I could smell the pork chops and the mashed potatoes. As my family dug into their dinner, my mother handed me a plate with a stalk of boiled broccoli and a portion of chicken breast. That was my dinner. This treatment continued on for 2 years. My older brother Bobby was too thin. Mom took him to the doctor so he could gain weight. He was a picky eater, and the doctor told him to snack a lot. My brother and I shared the same bedroom, so I knew exactly where he hid all the snacks. No wonder I couldn't lose weight. But puberty arrived and my belly fat went away. Mom could no longer torment me for being a fatty. I took that power away from her when my body changed. But she liked to bring up my academic failings. My brother and sister were book smart and competed against each other for grades. Our parents would reward us financially for bringing home good grades. Each A would be worth $5, a B $3, but a C had no reward. Mom claimed that a C was an Asian F. Guess who was a C student? Academics were everything to my parents. They saw this as a way out of our lower middle class life. With my love of arts, not math and science, my parents worried that they'd have to take care of me for the rest of their lives. But as I grew older, I became an honor student in high school. I went off to college, and I even earned my master's degree with all A's at that. Mom never lived long enough to see that happen. My mother wanted to be a teacher, but as the firstborn Japanese daughter, she was not allowed those dreams. She grew up in Okayama, Japan, where only her brothers would go to university. She adored her older brother, a teacher in Manchuria, who unfortunately died in a bombing before he was 30. She adored my oldest brother. She always looked up to him because he was accomplished in anything he did. He was voted most likely to succeed in high school. He was an Eagle Scout, and he even earned 3 degrees from Stanford. She loved to brag about him. My older sister also was beautiful, smart, popular, a high school cheerleader, a homecoming queen. She was a nurse with 2 beautiful children, and unfortunately she died in 1995. And then there was me. Your mother worries about you. What is there to worry about? I'm fine. She says you are just like her, independent and stubborn. That is why you had conflicts. Boy, did we have conflicts. I wanted my mother's approval on anything I did, but it was rarely acknowledged. She was always so critical of me. Did she really hate me? I wondered why she didn't love me as much as my siblings. Was it my poor grades or because I was chubby? Or was it my name? My mother could never pronounce my name Larry. Dad named me after his best friend in high school, but Mom, being Japanese born, could never pronounce my name, nor my sister's. For my sister Shirley, it was shitty. And for me, it was rari. As kids, when the phone rang, my mother froze. She would expect us to pick up the phone due to her language insecurities. Once a sales rep called and asked for the lady of the house. I am lady of house, she said. She repeated herself, I lady of house. I was within earshot when he said loudly, give me someone who can speak English. It just devastated my mother. She slammed the phone down, swearing in Japanese. She went to her chair in the kitchen and she lit up her cigarette. As a 10-year-old, I sensed her frustration, her sadness, as she sat puffing away silently. Mom did her best to assimilate into American life, but she had no filter. Mom said whatever was on her mind without thinking of the sting of her words. She relished saying irreverent things just to shock people around her. When I was in my 20s, I had a big fight before Thanksgiving. I told my sister I was not going to my parents' home for dinner. My sister begged me to go because she did not want to deal with Mom. On Thanksgiving Day, I ordered a giant pizza and I watched TV in my apartment. All night, Mom left me 10 messages on my answering machine asking, where you at? You coming? Beep. Shitty here, ready to eat. Beep. You coming? Beep. I have food here, you come visit. Beep. Then a message from my sister. Get your ass over here. Mom is driving me fucking crazy. At 8 p.m., my mother's last message was, I have leftover turkey dinner for you. You come in and you get now. I was still very upset with her. We didn't speak for 3 months. I don't even remember what we fought about, but I felt victorious knowing that I could push my mother's buttons by being equally stubborn. When I ignored her, she actually reached out to me and treated me much nicer. I needed to control our relationship and protect myself. You know she loved you. You took care of her, said the psychic. Really? Did she really? My thoughts went to my last conversation with Mom just weeks before she died of cancer. Mom had been relatively healthy until Dad died. Just 2 months after he passed, Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 incurable small cell lung cancer. Bobby flew in from California as we met with her oncologist. The doctor predicted 2 months of life without treatment. She was 86 years old. The oncologist said he could extend her life by 6 months with chemo. I don't want to die, said my mother. So she chose chemo. But she also demanded staying in her home, refusing a care center. My brother lived with her for a few months, but tensions grew, and he returned to California. I drove to Mom's house daily to feed her, bathe her, clean her house, do her laundry, and I also took her to her chemo treatments. I had an upcoming 3-day business trip, and I prepared meals for her in advance. I labeled and dated each food container so she'd know what to eat on specific days. I then kissed her goodbye and I left. When I returned, I drove directly to Mom's house late afternoon. She was napping in her nightgown, sitting in the kitchen table with the TV blaring. I turned it down. "Oh, you back," she said groggily, raising her head from her little nap. "How are you, Mom?" She looked weak. I asked again, "Did you eat?" I go to the refrigerator only to discover that she had not eaten anything I had prepared for the 3 days. "Mom, you didn't eat anything. Why didn't you?" I'm no hungry." I grab each food container as my voice is heightened in anger and frustration. "Mom, you didn't eat this. It's rice and teriyaki chicken." Bam, it goes in the garbage can. "And the Napa cabbage soup I made, Mom. Why didn't you eat it?" Bam, in the trash. "And the rice curry, your favorite. Why didn't you eat it?" Bam, in the trash. I am beside myself. I'm realizing now that I'm yelling at her. "I'm doing all of this for you. You need to eat. You need to stay alive. Isn't this what you wanted? Why am I doing all of this for you? You don't even try to take care of yourself." My mother looks me in the eyes solemnly with a sense of defeat. "I'm tired. I want to be with Daddy." I stop. I pause. And I start to tear up, realizing that my anger is selfish. Mom, talk to me. Did you even go to bed?" She's been in the same nightgown that I found her in when I went on my trip. It's now late afternoon, and she hadn't eaten anything. I head to her bedroom. No, don't go." I see she has soiled her bed sheets, too weak and unable to change them, unable to take care of herself. I now realize that her time is near. She's right. It is time for her to let go and to be with Dad. But I need to have that one last conversation with her. Mom, I need to ask you something. Why didn't you treat me the same as Bob and Shirley? What are you talking about? I treat you all same. Mom, we are not the same. I never felt that you loved me as much as you did Bobby. I love you all same. And you lucky Daddy love you. Yes, I'm very lucky that Dad loved me. He always acknowledged me, and I got to know him, and our bond was very special, Mom. But why couldn't you love me as much as Dad? A deep pause then. Well, you were fat, and you were ugly. What? When you born, nurse bring me to you. You ugly baby. I say, "That's not my baby. My other baby beautiful. This one look like monkey, all hairy. Bring me my right baby." Nurse say, "This is your baby. See, it say told the baby on bracelet. But you such an ugly baby." And you fat. You remember? I make you go round and round house many times until you get skinny. But you turn out okay. And you're not so stupid. You surprise me and Daddy. You turn out okay after all. While most children would be hurt by their mother's comments like that, I found this to be a big compliment, an acknowledgement that I turned out okay. And for me, that was good enough. Mom died a week later, exactly 11 months to the day my father passed, at the same hospital, at the same time, at 1:15 a.m. I went to her home after she passed, and I lit a candle in front of a picture of my parents. I wished her a safe journey, and I warned my father, sorry, Dad, but Mom's on her way. Bobby came to help me sort through my mom's house. He pulled out some old photos, and then he said, hey, here's your baby picture from the hospital. I did look like a baby monkey. I told Bob the story, and we laughed. He then handed me another picture. Guess who this is? It was a young, plump girl with round, chubby cheeks, taken in Japan. Is that Auntie Yuki or Auntie Yoshiko, I asked. No, it's Mom, said Bob. She was 15. I was shocked, since Mom had been thin most of her life, especially when she forced me to do laps around the house. Bob said, Grandma told her she was fat and ugly and that no one would ever marry her. She called Mom the fat cow because she was born in the year of the ox. I had no idea. The same issues that Mom had with her mother were the same as mine. I then realized that she picked at me just like my grandmother did her. No wonder Mom didn't go to Grandma's funeral in Japan a few years ago. But unlike Mom, I was able to confront my mother. I had that last conversation with her before she died. I now understood her more at this moment. And I knew she did love me despite herself. And with the psychic, knowing that my mother was still watching over me. You know she loved you. You took care of her. You know she loved you. You took care of her. Mom, I hope I didn't embarrass you. And I just wanted to tell you that I love you too. End of play. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Now I'd like to welcome another Theater Diaspora company member. Not only is he a company member, but he's our secretary on the board and a writer. Please welcome Alex Haslet to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Oh. There we go. Oba-san, genki desu ka? Daijoubu? Shikata ga nai. Sumimasen. I'm sorry, Grandmommy, Oba-san. I've never spoken the language well. I wish that I could tell you all that I need to say in a way that I knew would get through. To address in your first language the anguish that I can only express in mine and in rhyme. You see, I still remember the time when a package arrived and I was surprised to find it was from you. I opened it, excited, only to see that you had scratched my mother's name out of all of her books and then sent them to me. And I didn't know why. I was 7, and the thought that you would use me as a tool of your cruelty to torment my mother, your daughter, your only child was... I wish I could say that this was your only such moment, but there were far too many, including the day that I had to use every word that I knew to keep her from driving herself into the ocean as your words had almost driven her to do. So please, Grandmommy, Oba-san, forgive me my tone, my emotions, my lack of filial piety, but this generational trauma and anxiety must end with us. So I need to know. How could you? How could you put your daughter through hell from her very first breath to your very last? Was it such a difficult birth that when you finally laid eyes on her, you decided it wasn't worth it? Or in that hour and instant, did you see too much of your own reflection in a powerless infant and grow to hate her face as you hated your own? How could you at the same time go to such lengths to erase yourself from family history that you would sever ties forever with your family in Japan? And did you know in doing so that you would strand your descendants in the land to which you came and yet found no independence? How could you be so kind to your grandson the few times you saw him in person as a child, and so blind as to how it made him feel when you tried to turn him against his mother? Or perhaps you knew. Perhaps that's why you became so distant and let the relationship deteriorate to the point of non-existence. How could you wait until Alzheimer's had burned away all your memories to learn to appreciate your daughter's presence, to become pleasant? How could you wait until the last few months of your life to call your grandson for the very first time, and as you talked in circles about nothing at all? How could I have been so happy to hear you do so? Did you know somehow, deep down, this was what I'd always wanted? And if so, how could you? Because I didn't know. For so long, I held the belief that one day you'd pass on and would not be missed. So now that you are gone at last, why does it feel like this? How could you? Or perhaps I should ask, how couldn't you? I think back on your past, how you were born with so much good in you, but as the 10th of 12 in Ogori, where birth order was so important, there was never a decision you'd get to make for yourself, especially as a girl in a time in which women had no rights. But shikata ga nai. It could not be helped. You lived your life as well as you could, even as the depression raged and the farmers starved and the coups were staged and the government fell and the sun rose and went to war. And even as your brothers died one by one in the fighting and you were forced to work in the factories, you held your head high. Shikata ga nai. But then the fateful day in August when the bomb fell and expelled 80,000 souls from this realm in the blink of an eye. In search of your uncle, hours later, you arrived to find desolation. You never spoke much about this part, but what you must have witnessed, I can scarcely imagine. The bodies of the burned, bloody, and dying lying in the streets, on the riverbanks, in the ditch, the fires raging, buildings collapsing, the desperate cries of Mizu, Mizu, kurasai, water, water, please. These images never left you. How could you forget? And I wonder if from then on you heard those words every time you took a sip. If only that trauma was all that remained, but no, the radiation almost killed you. And though you survived, it had marked you for life as hibakusha, a bomb survivor. And you were shunned and unmarriable. But shikata ga nai, it could not be helped. You got well and not only survived, but persevered. Taught yourself English and thrived, going on to build one hell of a career. If only that was enough. If the choice had been yours, perhaps it would have been. And I suspect you wondered from then on what could have been, but you would never know. For you were told by your family to marry the one man who would have you, an American of all people and not a good one. He would take you away from all you had known to the country that killed your brothers and almost you, and your family let him. And thus, uprooted from your home and the garden you had grown, how could you not be disappointed when you arrived in Alabama, where for the next 50 years you had no access to your food and made few friends and never worked again and spent your days with a racist who would cheat on you and make you question why had all of this happened to you? How could you not, in your reply, become a bitter, spiteful person? How could you not, with all the trauma you endured, and with so few choices of your own, and how you felt completely alone, how could you not take all that pain and blow it through the only person over whom you ever had control? I think of you often, Grandmommy, Oba-san. and how in your last years, as Alzheimer's lifted the weight of your memories from your shoulders and made you light again. And though it was too late to make things right again, at least your daughter got to enjoy her time with you and meet the mother she should have had. I think too about what we could have had. A relationship, maybe. Would I feel more connected to my roots? Would I know my cousins? Would I speak the language? Would I like shrimp? Above all, perhaps I'd spend less of my time questioning where I belong and if I ever will. But shikataganai. Even if I never will, well, your actions are not mine to forgive. But I do understand, and I promise you this, that for as long as I live, so too will your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So last year, Theater Diaspora was able to work with Artist Repertory Theater to create an affinity space for LGBTQ AAPI artists. And this is where we were first introduced to our next guest. Lily Doe, please welcome to the stage, Lily.
My piece is called Dear Young Traveler, an Invitation. Dear young traveler, I'm going to be honest. It's going to be hard. You have come a long way within the first 16 years of your life. Your ship has been battered, your sails torn and patched up with whatever duct tape resilience you can muster. Again and again, you open up your heart as if trusting in a compass no one has ever taught you how to use. And again, the adults in your life have betrayed that trust, either because they too are trying to navigate the storms of their own trauma, or because they have given up completely, allowing the chaotic rush of anger and self-loathing to wreak havoc on everyone around them. And I would not blame you if you decided to close yourself off. A protective measure to shield yourself from wave after wave of disappointment from grown-ups who would take advantage of a young person's search for safety and stability. I would not blame you if you lashed out after a lifetime of acting as an adult you have not yet become. You do what you have to do to survive in a world eager to sacrifice its teenagers out of spite for who they are not innocent enough to be saved as children, nor calloused enough to be counted as adults. Navigating this journey is hard, but know that our invitation to a safe harbor still stands and will continue to stand no matter how far out the horizon you go. You have been unmoored for as long as you can remember, so I am sure an anchor will feel odd at first. But know that our home, our couch, will always be a dock you can come back to. We cannot offer you an island of perfection. Your aunt and I are not perfect people, far from it. Lord knows that talking to you is like talking to a younger version of your aunt, someone who needed an adult to not just see the storm, but also face the adult who allowed the tempest to build. What we can offer you is something my parents were able to offer me, a bridge, one that can bend with the waves of change and upsets, one that can reach far out from the coastline of safety and remain supported. There will come a day when you will have to grieve your past. I already see it within you now, an acknowledgement of what was taken or never given. There will be a time where the tools you're using to keep afloat will no longer serve you in healing. And healing can sometimes feel like a Category 5 hurricane captured in a bottle, spilling out after years of holding it in. But we want you to know that we are here. We will continue to show up. With each moment, our love for you will reach through any barrier you choose to put up. It is okay to let out the pain that has been swirling within you. This harbor is stable enough to safely contain the whirlwind of your emotions. You can be your worst self. This is a place where you don't have to be an adult. We believe you have what it takes to weather through the worst of it and to grow from the aftermath of a storm that has existed long before you came. You are a compassionate force to be reckoned with. We see who you could be if given the foundation. We see the people you can help if given the support. Know that whatever stage of your journey you find yourself in, we will always give you the space to be your whole self. We will always be your safe harbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. So earlier this year, we had our very first AAPI Artist Networking event, and this is where our next artist shared some of her work, and I'm so excited for her to share some more of her work tonight. Please welcome to the stage Cassandra Pangilinan to the stage. Thank you.
So, I would like to tell you a story about home, about my parents, about my past, and food. It's a story called Spices on the Wind. I arrive at home at the end of a long workday. I park my car just across the entrance of my apartment. Each set of apartments has a shared staircase leading to 3 floors, with 2 apartments on each floor. As I ascend to the top of the staircase of my apartment, I am greeted with something I don't expect. The wind gently kisses my face and my nose and greets me with a waft of spices. It's warm and inviting, but unfamiliar. As I continue to walk into my apartment, I begin to consider why this scent has taken me in. The aerated spices remind me of home, but not the one I'm entering. Rather, my parents' home in Salem, a home they haven't lived in for over 4 years. This home, the spices all lead me to and remind me of cooking, of my father cooking, of my mother cooking. I can remember this one birthday where I asked my dad to make me curry, red rice, and lemon meringue pie. I remember my dad making the water to steep the basmati rice with, carefully stirring delicate annatto seeds in a large pot of water, lightly simmering, never letting it get too hot, asking me to strain the seeds in the water again and again, making sure the water was smooth and not grainy. I remember how savory the rice tasted when steeped with this water. It was a salt and savor taste that I craved constantly, even as a little girl. Spices on the wind. I can remember my dad using pork bones to make his own stock for his curry sauce. A sauce heavy with vegetables, pepper, meat, and of course spices. Paired with the red rice, it was a dream together. Spices on the wind. I remember this was the dish my father made when my mom and my dad first had a sit-down dinner with my now fiancé, Ronson. We started the evening at the buffet counter, a place where I had many memories in that house. Memories of heart-to-heart chats, school projects, Christmas desserts, and of course, watching and helping my parents make dinner. Ronson and I offer, of course, to help, but my parents will hear none of it. They both bustle about the kitchen, gathering plates, stirring pots of rice, saucepans of curry, tossing, searing slices of meat. My dad and Ronson discuss what it's like growing up on an island only to move as an adult to the mainland. My mom asks us, what shows are we going to do next? At the table, with the dishes laid out prettily in front of us, the smell is almost good enough to eat. Spices on the wind. Being an adult without my parents nearby is strange. It's common as people grow up, as they leave their parents' house to go to college, for them to move away from their hometown and plant roots in a place unknown. I've deviated from the norm in this way. For me, in my life, this state This valley has always felt like home. It's where I've always lived. I've never yet felt the need to go anywhere else to discover myself. My journey back to myself has always been inward, never about where I'm living. My story is unusual in that my parents journeyed away from me rather than the other way around. Before my parents journeyed away, they hosted one last Christmas at this house in Salem. This was back in 2017. Normally, our Christmas gatherings are rather big to-dos. I have 5 siblings, and most of my siblings bring their significant others. 2 of my siblings have children. My grandma would come from Tigard. The tree would be surrounded with presents to accommodate all the guests in attendance. My mom would play Christmas music lightly from the TV, much to the chagrin of my brother-in-law, who insists that Christmas music is not real music. My parents' dogs would greet any guests with loud yaps and wagging tails. Their dogs, Romeo and Juliet, would move around constantly, trying to both welcome and assess the person in their home. This would always crack me up because they were mini poodles and rather unlikely to stop a threat in its tracks. Beyond the dog gauntlet, my parents would be busy in the kitchen, a not uninviting space, but certainly one of great activity. Multiple things on the stove, steam coming from multiple dishes, and plenty of items rotating in and out of the oven, spices on the wind. These things describe the Christmases I'm used to, the Christmases of the past. But this Christmas in 2017 wasn't filled with quite so much activity, not quite so much revelry. The guest list was much smaller than our usual celebrations. My parents, my brother, my sister, her partner, my nephew, and myself. The presents around the tree were much more modest, not piled as high. The dishes in the kitchen were made with love and delicious to be sure, but not as elaborate. I found solace in this celebration at the time. I found it warm and intimate, not realizing it was the last of its kind. It was many months later before I discovered it was indeed the last of its kind. The news of my parents' move was broken by my brother in a text. Simple and blunt is his way. You know, Mom and Dad are moving to Kentucky, right? It took me years to realize how big a change this was. The hurt of this move, of this change, was a slow burn, one that I didn't know how to feel at first. The summer my parents moved, my now fiancé and I moved in together. Perhaps the spark of a new experience, of new love, was camouflaging my feelings. Since my parents moved, I have quit and held jobs with 4 different companies. I've moved twice, adopted a cat, and joined a union. Not to mention living through a global pandemic that is still very real. Beyond just the distance that separates me and my parents, I have found ideological differences widen the space between us more than the distance ever could. There was once a time when my mother was my greatest confidant. I called my mother almost every day for her thoughts and advice. I couldn't tell you when it started, but slowly her advice stopped helping. It began to confuse. Her advice seemed less specific to my life and more like something you'd see in a yoga studio or, a fortune cookie. When I would ask my dad if he noticed a change in my mom, he'd say, "Oh, she feels so much more comfortable now that they moved to Kentucky." What did that mean? I began to call my parents less and less. Whenever I talked to them, it only exemplified how different they were, how much they'd changed. Maybe how much I'd changed. I've wondered over the years since their move if the person I've become was because of their move. Was I always meant to be this way? Did their move solidify my identity apart from my parents? Or did their move shape my identity apart from my parents? I'll never really know, but the differences I see in them in me have created a rift in our relationship that I personally will never equate with physical distance. It's ever present, but not one that is easily described or diagnosed. The brief conversations I have had with my parents over the past couple of years are not an ideal place to address these barriers between us. So there have been a couple of solutions that have kept the relationship between me and my parents going. We talk briefly and of shallow subjects, giving each other life updates, never discussing any particularly controversial subjects, light, short, not terribly detailed are our conversations. The other solution that I've always been prone to is a deep and sentimental nostalgia directed at my parents' old house, their old life, their old ways. I think fondly of the mother who was so similar to me, people called us the same person. The parents that would listen to my words with open hearts and open minds. I remember how inviting their home looked, as if it was almost ready to greet guests in itself. I remember their dogs, now passed. I remember babysitting my nephew in that house. I remember bringing Ronson to that house for the first time. I think fondly of the recipes I used to make with my mother, with my father. Sometimes we'd make recipes out of a cookbook made by my mom's grandma. I regret the recipes I never made with her, with my dad. Experiences I took for granted, assuming there'd be time, assuming there'd be opportunity. In this fondness, in this regret, in these series of memories, I'm brought back to the smell wafting on the wind. But oddly enough, in this faint memory, I'm given something strange. I find myself, be it naive, sentimental, feeling hopeful. This hope is stemmed from my ever-present need to find solutions between the rift between my parents and me. I do have hope that something might change, something might bring us together. For now, I have hope, I have memories, and I have the smell of spices on the wind. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. Our next guest is Barbie Wu. Barbie is an actress in town and just recently started teaching at Reed College. She'll be reading a piece with the help of Lily. Please welcome Barbie and Lily.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being here. This is not my height. Hold on. Fidget. So I want to do a little bit of introduction of what this piece is about. So back in 2020, a friend of mine, John St. Nicholas, who is also someone from the API community and an actor in town, we were both feeling pretty isolated with just not having any of our work being produced and having shows being canceled because of a pandemic. We started exchanging writing prompts with each other. And this one is a prompt that John has given me called A Vision of How You'd Like Things to Be. So you'll see, this is a little piece between an imaginary circumstance of me and my grandmother, and I'm playing my grandmother today. My mom's watching this right now, so love you. Okay. Did you freeze those bone broths that I made you? They should last for about 2 months if you keep them frozen.
Yep, Lao Lao. Everything was done just as you instructed.
It's never too early to give bone broth. Start giving bone broth to your baby.
Maybe that's why I didn't grow taller. Mom must have waited.
That was not your mom's fault. She should have married someone taller.
But then how was it not her fault? Huh?
Are you not worried that I'll spank you for bad-mouthing your mom?
All right, be honest. Do you love my baby more than me?
What sort of question is that? Of course I do.
Lao Lao. That hurts my feelings.
You made the baby. The baby is your masterpiece. I will love the baby even more because your baby came from you.
You know, Mom told me she gets really jealous sometimes seeing how warm you are with me. She said you were pretty unapproachable when she was a little girl.
Parents are people, Yunyun. That is the hardest pill to swallow as a child. To know that your parents are not gods and that they make mistakes is the hardest thing to reconcile. I was going through a lot of pain when your mother was little. I couldn't see my family for 40 years after coming to Taiwan. I never saw my mother again, nor my sisters. You don't recover from sorrow like that. Your mother resented me for playing mahjong all the time when she was younger, but that was the only way I knew how to connect with people from around my province without talking about our feelings. It's hard for women of my generation to talk about feelings. I didn't used to smoke, you know. I hated the way it smelled. Dongbei was so cold that people used to smoke to feel just the tiniest bit of warmth. I picked up smoking when I moved to Taiwan because cigarette smoke smelled like home. Yeah. What did I tell you that for? You're not supposed to be in a bad mood for breastfeeding. Your baby can get gassy.
I'm glad you told me, Lao Lao. I didn't know.
Talking doesn't change what happened in the past. It's better to focus on the future, Yunyun. Your life is ahead of you, not behind.
But it helps me understand where I'm from, Lao Lao. It reminds me that I'm a strong woman because I come from the strongest women. And speaking of which, Lao Lao, this strong woman is starving.
All you know to do is sweet talk me into making you noodles. When are you gonna learn how to make it?
Hopefully never, Lao Lao. I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily and Barbie. Our next guest is a poet, actor, astrologist, and playwright. Please welcome Ken Yoshikawa to the stage.
I had to go to the bathroom, so I was right before I came on stage. You know how it is. Hi. Cool. There's a button. They told me there's a button. There's a button, and the button did what it was supposed to do. I'm Ken. I'm going to read a poem. It's out of this book called Mustard Color Glasses. It's my book, and I'm going to sell it today, and all the money's going to go to Theater Diaspora, who is awesome. So thank you for having me here. It's a poem about my dad. Well, my father is as Japanese as it comes. He values hard work and instructs me to focus, and as much as I hate to say it, his words aren't pre-recorded as if he ran tape through his teeth with his eyes closed. No. He studied so hard that his chopsticks would shake like his heart. All awake, he would travel the world and do what it takes, and he did. We chased pigeons in London, ate Roman spaghetti, snapped shots of Dutch windmills, fished down under jetties, and had a phrase. One of us would point to the sky and say, "Ah, hikouki da!" And the other would be like, "Oh, honto da! Look, there's a plane! Oh, it's true." Honto is a Japanese word for true. It literally means to hit the book, the script, to hit reality, the present, to hit the root. The Japanese are nothing if not disciples of context and target practice. They pack their words like their country land, old, efficient, and full of meaning, versatile. For instance, the word for machine is the same as opportunity. So perhaps we were shooting down as many opportunities with the truth as we could because it was only so many steel wing rides till one drove a wedge between us. When I asked my mother, what's Australia going to be like? She said they walk on their hands, wear hats on their feet, God knows what their mouths do and how they do eat, but they prove to be nice. And from 1st to 4th grade, we lived under the world and were made in the shade, playing hot and cold after school with her, partying curtains for candy bars. Major Chip Hazard attendant to hail down. Wait, oh, hold on. No. That's not how this goes. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. A poet's got to do it right. You know what I mean? All right, yeah, making this shit. Playing hot and cold, oh, that's right, let there be, I was actually right, it was right. Major Chip Hazard from Small Soldiers attempted to hail down the, no, yeah, thank you, yeah, no matter how many times you do this, you can still fail. But it's not a fail. Major Chip Hazard attempted to hail down Genesis, a very new scene, a Sega beginning to be raised by a dream machine. Let there be light from the flick of a switch, reincarnate from Aladdin to Darkwing Duck. Does anyone else remember how awesome Streets of Rage 2 was? Yes! All the while, my father's socks, early in the morning when I'd parachute my sheets over the heat vent, it'd be another 12 hours till his socks in the evening came off with a glass of wine. But I'd sneak out anyways, like stalking Santa Claus, wondering what kind of treasures lay in his brown leather briefcase. That there'd be Daddy from the flick of a switch, uploaded the boss fight where in your room, of all places, your mother says through his frames, I can't do this anymore. Watch the pixels pass your soul into 64 bits. It took me 17 years to beat that level. It was a briefcase of fatherhood after all. And we held an electric string across the planet, and he'd ask me every year what I wanted to do for money. お金をどうするか, omae? And I'd tell him something different every year. I want to be a software engineer, make video games, build a world for us. Dad, I want to be a police negotiator like Samuel L. Jackson, that I can talk you down from one rising sun to another. I want to be an actor, otosan. I want to change the world. And now I see I was born to manufacture fantasies. He always told me video games would melt my brain. Well, I've got cups full of imagination coming out of my ears. So since my family portrait is an ocean that holds a torn memory, maybe if I smear it with as much brutal beauty as I can, perhaps I can fill it, or at least not notice that I can't reset my life by blowing in a cartridge. I will never forget his smile and how much I hate the sound he makes when he speaks English. That thinking when he goes fry fishing that he pulls dinner from the river already cooked, when the day when I wouldn't let him leave until he swinged on the swings with me. I took a picture knowing that this child hadn't died inside through all the years of business. And when I asked you if you were happy leaving your job, choosing your job over your family, you just said yes. You don't fuck with the truth like I do. That's okay. I can respect that. All I'm trying to say is I still point to the sky. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. So Ken actually recently performed at the Lansu Chinese Garden, as well as our next guest. Alex Dang is a poet and former TEDx speaker, as well as Portland and Eugene Poetry Slam Grand Slam champion. So please welcome to the stage, Alex.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Theater Diaspora. Again, of course, thank you to Curious Comedy, one of my favorite venues, way back when me and Reed von Valkenburg used to go over here after PCC classes, way back when in 2013. It's been a really, really long time, and it's been a very, very fun, oh my gosh, am I about to say almost 10 years? A decade? Am I old? I guess I'm getting older, y'all. I mean, I was born and raised here in Portland. I'm a proud graduate of Cleveland High School. I graduated 2012, and I became a writer, weirdly enough, because I started performing poetry at Backspace when it still existed, the Portland Poetry Slam, actually where I met Ken Yoshikawa. He's defeated me in Slam a few times. It's not like I still remember or anything. But today I'm here to read 2 poems I think I have enough time for. And this first poem was directly related to something that happened. I can't remember if it was 2015 or 2016, but I really wanted to write this poem, and I really wanted to perform it tonight, especially because I really like how everybody here individually, we are all looking together at the same way. We're all looking in the same direction. We're standing in solidarity, but solidarity does not necessarily mean a monolith, right? We are not the same thing. We're standing as a collective, and we're all taking our narratives. And I love the fact that we all have similar narratives here and there, of course, but everybody's is their own. And I really wanted to perform this poem because it's about, I think it was 2016, Best American Poetry published a poet named Michael Derrick Hudson. But the thing was that Michael Derrick Hudson used a pseudonym. He used the name of a Taiwanese girl he went to high school with, Yifen Cho. And he said that he used that name because it would help him get published. Yeah. Michael Derrick Hudson changes his name to Ngoc Tran, and my mother's skin fits him like a head on a wall, trophy in a case, history told by the victors. Michael tries out telling his new story and the words avalanche out of his mouth, every original syllable now white, cold, and bland, but the bell of every dinner party he attends. Tell me more, his guests squeal, and without hesitation he talks about how proud he is of us. He raised 4 brown boys, all in the strength of his hands, which are too pale and delicate to have ever known the sweet bloody labor of an immigrant. Then he drapes himself in the car business Hip Dang started from the ground up. He cuts out pieces of my father's tapestry to decorate his narrative, small detail, easily fixed, whiteout edit, and erasure. He lets his tongue parade in broken English. Exotic, they tell him. Stupid, they tell us. He takes snapshots of our American dream and they frame it and give him a gallery. His picture, 1,000 words. Our picture, 1 word. Thief. Michael is such an innovator. He writes such wonderful stories, practically steals them out of thin air, since we are no longer there, no longer taking space, no longer even having names. That was just the wind, he says at his poetry readings, when we gust and howl and tornado. But he, him, his body, too weak. He cannot carry us like my mother. Her skin gives him fever. Something starts clawing out from his insides, desperate, gnashing to breathe, to be born. Me and my 3 brothers start crawling out of his mouth. Every original syllable now ironed out because we stuff his arrogant mouth with the pronunciation of our Father. We smooth the familial cloth, stuff his arrogant mouth, and make him choke on our pronunciation. He told our story one too many times, and his colony could not hold us any longer. We broke free, and we took back our names, our recipes, our home, our country, our air. By God, we took back our air, and we filled it with our good brown bodies, too hot to touch. We melt his walls, smolder his trophies, burn his house down. But we leave his name alone. And then again, thank you everybody for being here. This is where I shout out Reynolds High School. I'm a PPS teacher, Head Start, holla at your boy, Cleveland High School. We got PCC. Support your educators, support everybody, do the most that you can. Y'all already here, I'm preaching to the choir, but boy, do I love hearing the music of a choir, am I right? This will be my last poem. Thank you again so much, everybody, for being here. And gosh, all these wonderful stories. My brother was in town, and we just this last weekend for a lot of stuff, and we had a really good conversation. Like a lot of us here, we've had a lot of stories about miscommunication, about people not really saying exactly what they need to be saying. I'm the youngest. I have 3 older brothers, and my second oldest brother, Eric, was in town, and we were talking, and he said that he appreciated me coming through, but he said something about that he wanted me to speak up more. That in our family, because I'm the babyest, I had what he described, which I absolutely loved, a learned helplessness. And I think, you know, in the words of Kathy Park Hong, the minor feelings that we kind of brush off. Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Especially when we hear our family stories. You know, my mother, fall of Saigon. Oh, my life, not that bad. I've had some bullies. I can beat them up. Not that bad. Oh shit, I got my ass kicked. Not that bad. I can keep going, and I keep going. But I think we should take a little bit of stock about that. And often when we do, then we start trading that stock for other things, right? We think our trauma is valuable. We think that the worst things that ever happened to us are like the things that make us who we are. And while that is true, I don't like to believe it. I want to reimagine it. So I've been thinking a lot about alchemy. Y'all know a little bit about alchemy. Yes, no, maybe so. The idea of like changing one thing into another thing. But I kept researching alchemy. And like a lot of things, it has to follow rules or whatever. And it like follows the 3 big science rules. Equivalent exchange, what you put in is what you get out. Every action has an equal opposite reaction. The second one is the law of conservation of mass, which states that energy can neither be created from nothing nor destroyed into complete nothingness. And the third one is the law of natural providence, yeah. And it says that a object can only be transformed into another object if they share the same basic materials or like principles or elements. So essentially, what we got is what we have. And so we go out there and we find other elements to mix and combine ourselves with to become exactly what we need at the moment, to fortify ourselves ironclad, to become as light as helium, to explode into sulfur. Yes, we take ourselves and we bring out the necessary parts. Watch us transform our ambition into a sword. Yes, you can see me turn my anxieties into a list in intricacy that I will never forget because I wrote it all down. There's anger, yes, and it can burn and singe, but it can also be the fire that keeps your family warm. Never will they feel inferno, only the glow from the warmth and the hearth. Look, we break ourselves down enough. Let's put ourselves back together. It's still you, it's still me, it's still us, and it's already been proven that we can never be completely destroyed. So let's turn our importance into gold, our veins now running rivers of value, bones, diamonds, each of us an endless waterfall if we choose to be, an endless forest of verdancy if we want to be. The sun, the moon, the stars, watch me turn into dawn, then noon, then sunset. Now see me dance with heavenly bodies as we waltz across the cosmos for the entire eternity of seasons. And now ask yourself, what are you made out of? The old wooden playground structure before they replaced it with the plastic one? Tell me, what is childhood if not an exact amount of self-discovery, embarrassment, and acne cream? Why are we so scared? What are we afraid of? Fear, when taken and unassembled, is merely a trembling hand trying to write sense of all of this. It is a mass and quake of confusion. It is your very, very small, quiet voice telling yourself that it was nothing, that it does not matter. So when we add clarity to balance out the confusion, what is left of the fear? A silhouette, an outline of who you once were. Walk through it like a door and look, you've arrived at your destination. There is so much inside of us we can all use to create. Each of us is a library of priceless memory, knowledge, scrapbooks. I think anything can be transformed into love because why not? I couldn't remember what I had for dinner last week, but 10 years ago, my friends threw me a surprise party in the middle of the summer because my birthday is in the middle of the winter, and I was very surprised and very grateful, and it is still very much a part of me today. Yesterday, I read a poem in the park that I grew up next to, and it was the most I had ever felt. Until today, or tomorrow, or the next week, or the next year, and all of these things, every scraped knee, cup of coffee, awkward eye contact on the bus, every laughter, every anger, every karaoke song sung so loudly and so badly, all of these things, these are our elements. We are the base we build upon. What we put in, we get out. I put in love, I get out life. Equivalent exchange. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Alex. So that was the end of our performance section. I do want to remind you all that we have a fun, like a raffle going on. We have two different raffles, actually. There's one that's online. If you see on your tables, there's a QR code. You can use that, or you can go to our website. I'll go ahead and talk about those. The raffle prizes are cash prize. There's a cash prize. There's tickets to Portland Center Stage's production of Sweatshop Overlord by Christina Wong, tickets to Profile Theater's King of the Yees by Lauren Yee, and tickets to Chamber Music Northwest. If you would like to buy tickets in person, there is a free membership to Lansu Chinese Garden, as well as a Maneki Neko cat, and pretty much a season subscription to Theater Diaspora's show next year. But yeah, we'll draw that in about 5 minutes, but you have until 8:25 to do the online raffle. We were gonna take like a little break, but we're kind of at the end of the evening, so my time management skills are really bad. But I wanna thank you all for being here, those who are here in person and those at home. We truly couldn't have done this without you. I also like to thank our donors and funders, the Regional Arts and Culture Council, Multnomah County Cultural Coalition, the Oregon Community Foundation, the Miller Foundation, the Oregon Cultural Trust, the Eric Wan and Michelle Goodman Fund, the Darrell L. and Patricia L. Swinson Fund, and the lovely Ronnie LaCroute. We'd also like to thank Chamber Music Northwest, Profile Theater, Portland Center Stage at the Armory, and Lansu Chinese Garden for providing our raffle prizes. But yeah, thank you again, and we'll do 5 minutes and then do the drawing. And for those of you on the live stream, I will say goodbye to you now, and we'll announce the winners on our website tonight. Thank you all so much.